and your Shay City and around the world. Welcome to another episode of Chicago's Intellectuals Podcast. And today, we're going to take it to Detroit. Oh, yeah. What up, Doug?
What up, Doug?
We got my man, Mr. Courtney Brown Jr. on deck. I'm going to throw my buffs on, man, so I can represent.
Oh, we yeah. You know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
You know exactly what it is.
How you feeling, brother?
Man, I truly am overstated, but in this case, it's accurate. Yeah. Blessed and highly favored, man.
Okay. Hey, listen, man. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, man. Give us a little bit of your background, Courtney Brown Jr. Give us a little bit of your background, Detroit's golden child.
Well, I guess we'll follow up. We'll follow up from there. Born in '64, was a very typical Detroit African American experience. Daddy was a bus driver. Mama was a clerk at the local supermarket. And then at about 4 or 5 years old, life took a big turn. My earliest projects back then, a lot of my family was still living in the Jeffrey projects. So we had great fond memories of the projects. Didn't realize that we were kind of poor because there was a whole lot of love around.
Yeah. And
so when you're a kid, love's way more important than money.
Yeah, we don't even know we struggle.
Yeah, no, we don't know because I laugh because I was like my definition of a cracker, I mean a cookie, I thought was a Ritz cracker and peanut butter. I didn't know what like Chip Ahoy and those kind of things were.
Yeah, those are delicacies.
Yeah, cookie was and sardines for midnight snacks was a delicacy.
Yeah.
But as fate would have it, to make a really long epic story kind of short, my dad had grown up with a guy by the name of Eddie Jackson. And they had come up in a historic part of Detroit known as Black Bottom and Paradise Valley.
Yes.
Which was, I guess, would be very similar to the south side of Chicago.
And no question about it. Yeah.
Harlem, New York, Fillmore area of Oakland. It was the black heartbeat of Detroit.
Yeah.
And in late '69, Eddie had gotten my father to help him get it was a lot of money back then, a $3,800 settlement check, as Eddie had an accident working at the plant. And prior to this accident, Eddie had been a taxi driver, and he had noticed going on in the streets that this drug trade was becoming a huge thing in the city. And he had this crazy idea that he shares with my dad after my dad helps him get this $3,800 check, that he's going to go into the narcotics business. My father tells him that he's crazy and that he doesn't know anything about the narcotics business, nor does he. And Eddie says, yeah, I don't know nothing about it, but I know that these Negroes is making a ton of money in this stuff.
They're getting paper.
They getting money. So he had $3,800. He gave my father $800. And he tells him, I'm putting the other $3,000 in the game. He went through a bunch of trial and errors. He paid his dues. Brothers ran off with his inventory, sold them garbage products. And then as fate would have it, he met a addict by the name of Box, who, despite of being an addict at the time, in his earlier life had been a big fella. And true story, the guy needed a $10 pack and didn't have any money. And he tells Eddie, if you give me a $10 pack on credit, I'll introduce you to the biggest guy in the city. Eddie does the quick math. Looks like a whole lot of upside with not a lot of downside. Worst thing is I'm out of $10 pack. Best thing, I get plugged in.
He ran that cost-benefit analysis.
He ran a cost-benefit analysis. And it came out, you know what, Box? You got a bet. Here's your pack. Now, what's up? He introduced them to a guy by the name of John Claxton, who truly was at the top of the food chain. And within 18 months, Eddie went from a net worth of 0 to probably about 6 million bucks, 1970 money. By that time, my pop sees his man blowing up. My pops is 3 months behind on his mortgage.
Your pop's still driving the bus now.
Pop's still driving the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's still driving the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And he's seeing his man blow up, and he's starting to spend, Eddie had a little pool hall. He's starting to spend a little more time at the pool hall, seeing how his man is moving. But he cut into Eddie and told Eddie that he's going to quit his job. Mm-hmm. And he just needed to do something different.
Yeah.
And Eddie was the kind of guy, you know, RIP, he was a unique fellow. He didn't make his man ask for a job. He just tells him, well, shoot, I've been waiting for you to come along, man. What about time you figured it out?
So what was your father's and Eddie's relationship prior to this? Did they grow up together as children?
Grew up together as children. My father is about 4.5 years older than Eddie. Eddie's father had been a successful businessman. Okay. But again, back then, even though if you were successful, you still had to live in the neighborhood with everybody else.
Yeah.
So my pop's family had, you know, only male, five sisters. Pop's not around, but Eddie's family owned a bunch of properties. So and my pop had a reputation as a responsible kid in the neighborhood. Wow. So Eddie's father would kind of like only let him go out if my dad was around to chaperone.
Got you.
And in fact, it was Eddie's father who told him, you make sure you keep Courtney close to you.
Dig that.
And then he tells him the real cryptic message. And boy, if you ever come across any real big money, you make sure you keep Courtney close to you.
Wow. Says a lot about your dad as a young man.
As a young man. Yeah, he was the kid that all the Jewish merchants, you know, would let him work at the store because he never stole or never was into the rowdy stuff. He was the kid who did good in school, you know. And so he tells Eddie that, man, you know, I'm 3 months behind on my mortgage. And Eddie tells him, look, man, I'm about to go hunting with my brother and the fellas. When I get back, I'll straighten that out. But while I'm gone, why don't you hang around the pool hall and just keep an eye on things for me?
Yeah.
And he did. And when Eddie came back, his affairs were in order. He tells my old man, F that paying off the 3 months you behind on your mortgage. How much is it just to pay your house off?
Yeah. That was
Pop's like, what? Yeah, he's like, yeah, he was a real guy like that. He was like, man, we're not going to play no games like this.
Yeah, that was his friend, man. Yeah.
That was his friend. Yeah. And he says, let's just go on and pay this off. And Pops ended up doing that. 18 months later, there's the Ali Frazier fight, you know, the famed fight of the century in 1971. And Eddie decides to go to the fight. As fate would have it, he would end up meeting some members of the Gambino crime family, who at the time were at the very top of the food chain and organized crime in America. They were dealing with a product that they made a movie about with Gene Hackman, won an Academy Award, called The French Connection.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Yeah. That was the inventory. That was the work, as the kids would say, that the Italians were dealing with. Mm-hmm. And as fate would have it, Eddie's in there. He's forgot his shoes for the fight. He asked a bellman. This whole story in my life, in a lot of ways, has been ordained by the guy, right? Mm-hmm. So a junkie addict turns Eddie onto his first connection, which blows him up. He goes to New York to the Ali Frazier fight. He forgets his shoes. He just asks a random bellman, hey, man, I need a pair of shoes. The guy tells him to go to this place called City Squire, where he's at the City Squire Sheridan. There's a haberdashery right across the street. The bellman tells him to go in there. They got all the nice stuff. It's a high-end store. Mm. Now, Eddie then took the crew. He got 6 Cadillacs lined up on 6th Avenue in New York. And he was a big, flamboyant. He was straight out of Central Casting of what the big dope man looked like and carried.
They drove to New York, man?
They drove to New York in a 6 Cadillac Entourage.
From Detroit.
From Detroit. So even though he's just going across the street, him and the fellas take all 6 Cadillacs and just double park in front of my man's store. He comes in there with all his diamonds on, talking cash shit. But as I always say, game recognized game.
And no question.
So the Italian guy is peeping this guy's style, who's just like, yeah, give me one of them, my man. Y'all pick out some stuff, fellas. I'm here to watch my man Ali put it on that Joe Frazier. My man Ali gonna put it down. And the Italian cat, who we come to history with now, his name was Carmine Lombardozzi, who was the chief lieutenant of Carlos Gambino and in charge of all the narcotics for the Gambino organization, is who he is accidentally bumped into. So Doc Gambino tells him, oh, so you think Ali gonna win, huh? And Eddie's like, why? It ain't no question. He said, well, I think it's a question. Well, Eddie said, well, shit, what you trying to say? Were you trying to put your money where your mouth is? And the Italian tells him, yeah, I think I do. Says, well, what do you want to do? Little gentleman bet can't hurt. He said, okay, well, make it easy on yourself. They agree on a $10,000 bet. And again, this is $10,000 1973 money.
Yeah.
So it's like a $100,000 bet today, right? They make the bet. Of course, as we know, history would have it, the Italian wins because Joe Frazier wins the fight. They had agreed to meet back at the clothing store, win, lose, or draw, to settle up the bet. Eddie comes back the next day as a man of his word, pays the man his $10,000. The Italian tells him, you know, man, even though you lost the bet, I think you're going to win the deal. Eddie likes, so what you saying? The Italian tells him, I think we're in the same line of work, my friend. He says, in fact, I got some great inventory that I think you should check out. I don't have it right here in the store, but why don't you send your people back? Eddie goes home, sends back a guy, legend also in the street to help, another guy to help raise me, a guy by the name of Charles Rudolph, the great Dolph, sends him back with $50,000. They buy a couple bricks. Eddie does this product is unparalleled, right? Again, they made a movie about it, The French Connection. They're able to take one brick and turn it into 20 bricks, and it's still like it's pure. He goes from a multi-millionaire to like 100 millionaire. I mean, it becomes insane. He's making $100,000 a day. So, yeah, Eddie once he gets with the Gambino family, basically grows his business to a $100,000 a day business. He has went in less than 2 years from a taxi driver that couldn't pay back my dad a $50 loan, literally, to he has bought his man, he's paid off his man's house. He's built him a mini mansion in the suburbs of Detroit. And he then cuts into, as my father tells the story, tells my dad, he say, man, your man lonely out here in the suburbs with all these white folks.
Yeah.
Now you gotta understand, my pops never, this is all, he already in his mind he's gone from being behind on his mortgage to a paid off house.
Mm-hmm.
He's now got like 30,000-40,000 bucks. He was just driving a bus for $3.50 an hour. In his mind, he's won already.
He winning.
It's like there's no more to, there can't be more to it than this.
Yeah.
But Eddie was on something real different.
How wrong he was, huh?
How wrong he was. Like, Eddie had a phrase that he used to tell the guys in the streets. He said, y'all trying to catch each other in the streets. I'm trying to catch Rockefeller. And yeah. He says, I'm trying to catch, and they didn't understand it then nor now what he was saying. Like, I'm not, these trinkets, the Cadillac and the Rolls Royce, These are toys. I'm trying to get money like them white folks got.
You're trying to build an empire.
I'm trying to build an empire.
In the 70s.
In the 70s. So he tells my dad he's lonely and he wants him to move out to the suburbs with him. My father, being the way he is, he's like, Eddie, I work for you. I can't afford to live out there. Now he's telling the man with all the money what he can't afford. So Eddie's like, this guy, my man, just don't get it. Like, he tells my father, he said, Courtney, you hold the money. You got $1 million of my money at your house. What are you talking about? You can't afford it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll help you out, man. Next time you do collections, just take the first 200,000 you pick up and buy you the house. He's like, well, what house? Now, Eddie's already thought this out. He's like, the Jewish dentist next to me, house is for sale. Why don't you go talk to him about the house? My mom and dad go talk to the guy, ask him how much the house is. Again, they don't know no better. This old Jewish dentist owns the house. Tells first he asked my parents, where are your parents at? My parents are like, we are the parents. Well, let me back up because a little quick, funny anecdote about life and money. Dad's like, when he knocks on the door, the Jewish dentist like peeks out the door, but he won't even open the door for them. And he's like, yeah, how can I help you? And he's like, we've been told your house is for sale. We'd like to talk to you about it. And the dentist is still like, yeah, the house is for sale, but who's your real estate broker? And he's like, we don't have one. So he's like, I think you need to go get a real estate broker. Pop says, well, my friend, Mr. Jackson, told me their house. And then he's like, the dentist is like, Eddie Jackson, my next door neighbor. Door flies open. He's like, come on in. Please have a seat. Because the dentist knows what my dad doesn't know.
Yeah.
This deal's done.
It's done.
If you're with this guy, with the Rolls Royces and the Mercedes and the 6 Cadillacs in his driveway, who just built the Olympic-sized swimming pool in his backyard, if you're with him, this deal's done.
Now, what are we talking? We're talking Southfield or Oak Park?
We're talking Southfield.
Because you said Jewish guy, so.
Right. So the migration went for the Jewish community, Northwest Detroit. Then they got more affluent. They moved to Oak Park. Then they got more affluent and they moved to Southfield. Yeah. So right now, Southfield is the home for the nouveau riche Jewish community and the really new money Black community. But at this point, Southfield is probably still 80% Jewish.
So during this time in Southfield, now Motown is going on, right?
Motown is at its height. Barry is just about to relocate headquarters from Detroit to Los Angeles, but Motown is still based in Detroit. And again, Smokey Robinson's already out there. He lives down the street. Yeah. Otis Wilson of the Temptations, he lived a block away. Pete Moore of the Miracles, 2 houses away. Dave Bing and Bob Lanier of the Detroit Pistons lived out there. He
eventually became mayor?
And he eventually became mayor, exactly. It is where it was so exclusive that as a kid, when people would ask me where I lived and I'd say I live in Southfield, they didn't believe you. They were like, Black people don't live in Southfield. I mean, we had private.
To an extent, that's true. That was true to an extent, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, we had a subdivision security like would come by and check your locks at night. What? Police response time. Yeah, I mean, like really, like every night, the neighborhood security guards would come by. Safety check every night. In every house in the subdivision, security came by to make sure that everything was okay. Wow. So this was our own community's private security. And so my mother, who was very against this whole getting in the street idea, when he paid off the house, she was like, okay, I'm going to give this thing a minute, but I'm still against it. But when he's like, we're moving out to the suburbs and the kids are going to get a chance. And at this time, Southfield had the best school system not only in the state, it was regarded the best public school system in the country.
Mm.
Because say what you want to say about the Jewish community, they take their education very seriously. And the public school system there was as good as any, or better than a private school. And so she said, okay, let's see how this thing plays out. And we moved next door to Eddie, and my life became a fantasy life. Everything I wanted, I got. To show you how quick, though, the money came to us, we had a maid, and my grandmother is a maid. So let me say that again. Our lives changed so quick that my mom's mother is a maid for a profession, and we've hired a maid.
Wow.
That's how quick it was all happening.
Yeah, it was coming in by the dump trucks.
Yeah, you know, we got a Steinway baby grand piano in our living room, and no one we know knows how to play the piano.
Remind me of somebody I know over in Detroit right now.
That's right.
You didn't have a choice.
Remind me to tell you a story. Tell you a good story about Red Fox used to often catch up to my pops when he would come to town. And Eddie, yeah. But the Jeffersons were like the first TV show to kind of show Black affluence.
Yes.
But they weren't living. Weezy and George wasn't living like we was living. They've never shown Black families living like Eddie's household and our household were living. It was fantasy.
Yeah.
It really was fantasy. I mean, and I guess just a quick anecdote to put it in perspective. Like I was 10 years old, and my birthday's 3 days after Christmas. And into Santa Claus, because we just pulled up at Toys R Us one day, a week before Christmas, and mom and dad are in the car, and they're just like, they tell me and my sister's 3 years and 3 days older than me. They're like, look, we Santa Claus. Y'all go in the Toys R Us and get what you want. We say, well, how much should we get? Say, get everything you want. And we literally just walked down each aisle, and there was nothing. I mean, the owners of the clothing stores in town, they would come to our house, and I would try on clothes. My mom went shopping every day, but a lot of times that owners of the haberdasheries would literally, these old Jewish men who own stores would pack up half their store and just bring it to our house and let me try on clothes, and it all seemed so normal.
You know, let me ask you this, Courtney.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit to when you're in high school. I would love to know, like, what was it like for you in high school? Because you didn't go to a normal high school, I take it, right? And so you're this affluent kid now, right? So what was life like for you as a high school teen?
All right. Well, to get me to high school, though, there is some drama between elementary school and this fantasy life in high school. And of course, if they read the book Motown Mafia, you get all the details or see the documentary Motown Mafia. The federal authorities get a hold or start investigating them. In 1973, I'm on my way to school, and I pick up the front page of the Detroit News, like I did every morning, except for this morning I picked up the newspaper, and there was a picture of my house and Eddie's house on the cover.
Well,
and the headline reads,
you're like 10 years old, right?
I'm 10 years old.
Oh, shit.
It's March 16th, 1973 is when the story broke, and the headlines of the Detroit News and Free Press read, "Drug kingpins live in lap of luxury." And there's a picture of my house and Eddie's house, and the story does this, a whole 8-page expose saying, is Courtney Brown and Eddie Jackson, are they partners in real estate or are they partners in organized crime? And it describes the lavish life and homes that we live in. And from that day on, and the secret was out, they would end up being indicted in what would be the biggest narcotics case then and still now, the history of the state of Michigan. My father, Eddie, and 30 of their friends and associates were all indicted.
This is when you're 10.
This is when I'm 10.
Oh, wow.
They hire, long before OJ, the original lawyer dream team, a guy by the name of Henry Ross Black, who was partners with another lawyer by the name of F. Lee Bailey, who had represented Patty Hearst, the Boston Strangler. He was regarded probably as the top lawyer in the country.
Yeah.
They hired another guy by the name of Milton Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they hire a dream team. The biggest, best known lawyer out of New York, this guy Henry Ross Black. He had won a case in Vietnam because he was a former JAG lawyer, army lawyer. And he won a case called the My Lai case. Got a bunch of army officers off and avoided court-martial. He's quoted in all the books of law. Anyway, these guys keep their case in litigation for 7 years. They are out on appeal bond. Now, again, this guy, Eddie's a different guy. Eddie pays for his own legal defense and all 31 other co-defendants. He picks up the legal tab for 32 people.
Let me guess. He didn't have any problems with snitching.
As fate would have it, 32 were indicted, 32 were found guilty, 32 went and sat down, not one cooperating witness. It'll never happen again.
Now, you ain't gonna see that no more.
The way he was and the run they had, they all basically were like, you know what? If it's time to sit down, it's just time to sit down.
Wow.
So by the time I am going to high school, they have exhausted all of their legal remedies. The U.S. Supreme Court refuses to hear their case in 1977. So this case has gone on from 71 to 77. They were afforded every luxury of being a white gangster. They are allowed to stay out on appeal bond. They continue running their business. They continue making tons of money as this thing is being litigated. The newspapers are covering this whole thing. The TV, you know, I got used to cameramen and TV people coming to the house. I'd be outside playing basketball. The news people would come by. Hey, Courtney, Jr., is your dad home? No, Dad's not home. That was the other part, you know. The house is under constant surveillance. Every 15 minutes, the FBI is driving by, to the point that we just used to wave at them. It became a part of our life. So by the time I go to high school, my father has had to surrender himself along with the rest of his crew. Now, because they had 7 years to prepare for the inevitable, and my mother, who was the visionary, because she was like, Courtney, you're going to go to jail. These white people cannot let you guys win. I don't care what all your fancy lawyers say. You guys have to go to jail. There's no scenario where you guys get to stay out and win.
Yeah, you can't just escape this. Yeah,
you just can't escape this.
Yeah.
But Mom, after this thing had hit the newspaper, her aunt told her the best advice in the world. She told her, while you guys got this money and you got these resources, you need to go get yourself and those kids the best education that money can buy. Because when this thing ends, and her aunt told him, baby, this fantasy life you guys are living, it will end. But right now, you guys got a hand you can play. And my mother, who had graduated from high school with like a 1.1 GPA,
wow,
goes back and starts at community college, got her associate degree, got her bachelor's degree. By the time my old man is turning himself in, she's working on her master's. She was thoughtful, so she's thinking he's got to go away. So we need to prepare. So we had lots of assets. So we got this big, gorgeous home that's paid for. We've got Cartier and Gucci China. We've got properties. So they started the process of preparing to put away enough money to ride out his sentence. So my tuition money, and they're already like, we're going to send him out to private school. So again, this was my mom. She was the forward thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So she prepared for that. So although my father was in prison while I was in high school, I was still living a very privileged life.
Your entire high school career, your dad was gone?
My entire high school career.
He's in the feds, right?
He was in the federal joint. Started off at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Did half his sentence in Atlanta. Then they transferred him back to a little closer to home, to Milan Federal Penitentiary. Now, back then, the feds had parole, so you only had to do a third of your time.
Oh, really?
So although he was sentenced to 21 years, he was eligible for parole after 7. So about 4 years of high school, he's away. My father being my father, who was either the greatest parent ever or should have been arrested for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. But it was our environment. He's making some moves while he's locked up. So around my junior year in high school, his friends start coming by the house like, your dad said, give this to you. It'd be a brown paper bag full of money. Your dad said, give this money to your mom, because he's met some other people while he's locked up. You know, you send a bunch of criminals to one location.
Yeah.
They don't talk about politics. They talk about, hey, man, I know who you are. You've got a great resume. I've got a great resume. So he's already starting to do his thing before he gets out. So I had a great high school career, except for the fact that my dad's locked up. I was a good kid. You know, he had promised me, told me when he went away that I had to be the man of the house at 13. And he gave me strict orders, do not give your mama no problems while I'm gone. I look back, it can explain a lot of things. Once he came home and I thought I had paid my dues to being responsible, so it was my turn to be irresponsible. But I took my orders seriously. Good. I didn't give mama no problem. Wasn't no smoking weed, wasn't no drinking. I was just a good kid.
Good, man. Good.
I was a good kid.
Because we know a lot of times it goes differently, right? Regardless to what dad said, right?
Regardless of what dad said. Yeah. So I helped mom hold it down, and mom held it down. She ended up finishing her master's. Ended up getting a great job, like running a department for the state. Got her master's in social work. And as she's doing this, she's telling my dad about this business opportunity in the adult foster care business. And she's seeing these women make a lot of money as what's called a provider. So some of these early conversations are happening literally in the visiting room of Milan Federal Penitentiary. And Pop's being Pop, he don't really understand what she's saying, but she's like, well, when I get out of here, let's talk about it. And my mother and father are still best of friends. Mom had decided, well, okay, so I get through high school, everything. I go away to college. My father comes home in between my freshman and sophomore year of college.
What school did you end up going to?
A parochial school, private Catholic school called Royal Oak Shrine, out like on 13 Mile in Woodward.
I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, across the street from Beaumont Hospital.
Yeah, I know exactly. I used to go to Starbucks over there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. In fact, that Starbucks used to be an arcade when I was in high school. Yeah. So I went to Royal Oak Shrine. My sister went to Cranbrook, up in Bloomfield Hills. And she's in school with like Lee Iacocca's kids and a bunch of the other Michigan elite. Then I go to Western Michigan for college. Okay. When Pops comes home, Mom asks him a simple question: are you going to stop hustling? He's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, okay, well, I've paid my dues. I've I did what I think any wife can be asked, but I can't do this one again.
Yeah.
Right? And Pops is like, I get it, but I am who I am and I do what I do. And it was a black folk divorce. You know, they were divorced, but still living together for a year. You know how we do. But anyway, but Pops was like, you know what? You held my family together while I was away. How much you need to start this business you talking about? She gave him the figure. He gave her the money. We just celebrated 40 years in business.
Goodness.
We've employed hundreds of people. Everybody who used to be in the streets with us way back in the day ended up working for us in a legitimate function. She's won all kind of awards for the quality of service we give the mentally ill and mentally handicapped.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then I ended up, working for my pop for like from 80, by the time I'm a junior in college, or after my junior year. Duty kind of called. He didn't encourage me or discourage me. I was raised in it. It was kind of what we did. And again, he didn't encourage it. He basically said, you got a choice. You're a grown man now. You can go to the square.
Let me ask you, Courtney. So now you're a good kid growing up.
Yep.
You're raising this affluent lifestyle.
Yep.
And you're really an obedient child, right? Because
Very
you
much
listened to your dad when he had to go away. And then you go on to your college career and you end up jumping off the porch. At what time, what age were you?
When I really get involved with Pops?
Yeah.
21. 2021. It broke, it was, and again, my family, a lot of parts of my family were involved in this lifestyle. His peer group, who were nefarious or big shots or street legends to everybody else, these were just the guys I grew up. It wasn't, you know what I mean? You don't, when you're that close to it. So you learn things, you know things. And I made a decision that I was going to help Pops out.
Wow.
And let me be frank, and the pay was good. Really good.
Of course it was.
My friends were graduating from college, happy to get a job for $25,000 a year. And I'm handling $25,000 every day.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, did you eventually graduate from college?
Some 20 some years later. So a whole life. It took me 20 years to finish my senior year.
So when you jumped off the porch, you jumped off the porch.
The summer after my junior year,
yeah,
he was doing some things with this guy, big guy, by the name of Basil Miller down in the Bahamas.
Basil Miller, yeah.
They needed.
Yeah, I saw it.
We had to get the money from Detroit down to the Bahamas. Yeah. And that's how I got introduced to that world.
So wait a minute now. Let's take this slow.
Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 20 years old. I'm 20 going on 21.
And
I can't drink legally yet.
You're flying to the Bahamas to make a transaction.
I am flying to the Bahamas with undeclared hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my safety has been insured because my pop's man, Basil, half the people at the airport in the Bahamas and Bahamian customs work for him. So this is how I entered the game from this vantage point. It's like, don't even worry about it. I wouldn't send you my only son. I wouldn't send you on a suicide mission. So just follow your instructions and you'll be fine. He did inform me, don't be confused. You are involved in what's called money laundering right now. If things were to go bad, you could get in some trouble. But, we are professionals at this. We are real professionals at this. We've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. This should be a layup for you, kid. All you got to do is get on the plane with the money. Well, Mr. Miller down in the islands took a liking to me. He was a very educated man himself. And he tells my pop, I only want your son to handle getting me my money in the future. Pops is like, I don't know what you did to the man, but he's like, he doesn't want anybody else to touch his money but you. So that whole summer of 87, I am flying back and forth to the islands to bring this man his money. I also have started living I'm no longer the disciplined good kid. The lifestyle and the money, I'm 21. I've got all the access to all the money and cocaine that any young man would ever want. It's the 80s, and there's no, in fact, not only is there not a stigma about cocaine, it is perceived to be a rich man's indulgence.
Yeah, I remember that. Rich man's drug.
And I fancy myself a rich man.
Yeah.
And the young ladies really liked it. And my friends liked it. And I was the Wolf of Wall Street before the Wolf of Wall Street. It was a crazy, decadent time. As fate would have it, into 87, I'm on one of those runs to the Bahamas. The clerk at the airline had forgot to put Junior on my ticket, which triggered a computer response that it was Courtney Brown, not Courtney Brown Jr. traveling. My father's on the Interpol list, which is Interpol is like the international police. Mm-hmm. So the computer tells them that Courtney Brown is traveling out the country, unlike Courtney Brown Jr., which doesn't trigger anything. So I am pulled off of an airplane, literally, as the plane is about to depart. 4 DEA agents walk on the plane. The pilot gets on the PA and says, there's going to be a slight delay. There's no problem. I've noticed that the same people who are now getting on the plane, I had got a really weird vibe at Miami International having a meal before I got on the flight. You know, that sixth sense, like, something ain't right with these people. Mm-hmm. Something ain't right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same people that I got that vibe at the restaurant, that something ain't right, the same 4 people get on the plane. So I have to be honest, at this point, I'm like, oh shit, this is where you stop being the little kid, stop being the golden boy.
Yeah.
Because it's about to be showtime. 2 of the agents stay by the cockpit with the pilot. The other 2 walk back to my seat, flip their badges, say Courtney Brown. I say yes. They're like, DEA, please get your bags. Come with me. Get my bags. They escort me off the plane. I had been trained in school, you know, you don't have to say anything, you know, but I also had been told if it's just a regular FBI or DEA, you don't have to say anything. If they bring in U.S. Customs, it's very serious. U.S. Customs has complete autonomy at an international airport. So I stonewall the DEA, like, they're like, open your bags. We're like in the boarding area. I'm like, I'm not opening my bags. You have a warrant. Now I'm being cool, but inside I am dying.
So
my heart is jumping.
Give me 1 minute here.
Yeah.
You went to this school in the suburbs of Detroit, and what were the demographics in that school? In other words, what were the percentage of black to white ratio?
School was 95% white.
And you mean to tell me they're teaching y'all about your rights in school?
No, my father and his friends are teaching me about my rights.
Ah, okay. I was about to say, I thought you said you learned that in school. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Royal Life Shrine gave me a great education, but they did not tutor me on how to deal with the DEA.
Okay. What the hell?
Those lessons, no, that was part of my internship with Pops.
Okay, got you. Continue.
I tell them I'm not opening, even though I am absolutely melting inside. Because I'm like, and of course they are very aggressive, and they're like, you're going to jail, this, that, and the third. That street training from Pops and his friend did hit in. I'm like, but you haven't If you were going to arrest me, you'd arrested me. You'd have said you'd say you have the right to remain silent. You'd arrest me. But you're not arresting me. You're asking me to open my bags. So I'm not opening my bags. And as Pop and them had said, though, but if it's bad, they're going to call in U.S. Customs. Big white guy comes in one of those little golf carts in the airport, flashes his badge. He tells me he's U.S. Customs, and he says, here's the thing, kid. Either you open your bag and you let me see what's inside, or I just take it. You're at an international airport trying to leave the country. I don't need no warrant. I'll take your bag, and you and your lawyers will try to figure out how to get it back. So what do you want to do? I'm like, so where do you want me to open my bag at? He's like, they take me to the basement of Miami International Airport, which is a very nice interrogation facility. Hopefully none of you ever have to go to the basement of Miami International. And they open my bag. I informed them what they already know. They're like, do you have any money in this bag? I said, yeah. They said, how much? I said, I don't know. They mean, well, how do you know? Why don't you know? I said, because I didn't pack my bags. I'm going to the Bahamas to buy lobsters because my family's going into the seafood business. Mm-hmm. But my secretary packed my bag, so I don't know how much money is in there. I just know there's money in there. They open up the bag. It's $100,000 that they go through. They find all the stash compartments. They find the $100,000. Okay. At this point, I'm really, really having a bad day. But I'm trying to keep it together, right? I happen to hear one of the agents say to the other one, though, he's not 44. And then I felt a little bit better because it hit me. They think I'm dad. They're not after me. So now I got a little bit backbone now because I overhear them saying he's not 44.
Yeah.
Then I hear the other agent say, we ain't got nothing on him. He ain't a felon. So now I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? What are you guys going to do with me? What have I done? I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you guys holding me? Then they helped me grow up. It's each agent. They got the 100,000 spread out. Each one of them take a couple stacks, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000. They tell me thank you for their wives. So they're going to buy their wives some coats and some jewelry. Other agent says he's going to take my 3,000 and go on vacation. They give me back the 91,000. Tell me to tell my dad that they're up to what he's up to. And they'll send me some paperwork and they'll be in touch. And told me, welcome to Miami Vice.
Oh, this was in the days of Miami Vice.
This is in the days of Miami Vice.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Okay.
So that incident ends up changing my life because I can't go back to the Bahamas anymore. When Pops and his people in the islands find out what happened, they had me talk to their lawyer down there in Miami. They surmised that the operation has not been compromised. It was simply a clerical error that led to this tragedy. But I can't go back to the Bahamas anymore because now they know that much.
Simply because somebody didn't recognize the junior on the back of your name.
Right. But they know that Courtney Brown is sending his son to the Bahamas with large sums of money.
Yeah, so it's over with now. As far as the Bahamas are concerned.
As far as the Bahamas is concerned. So the big guy in the Bahamas says, check this out. I have some banking friends that got a stock market exchange in New York, but it's just a front for me and my colleagues to get our money cleaned up. Why don't we have Courtney Jr. just start taking the money to them directly in New York? So that's what I started doing now. So I go to this office on 6th Avenue, looks like a regular stockbroker exchange, except in the back, it's a picnic table and some chairs with a bunch of old Jewish guys. And I give them the cash. They take a fee. They give me a cashier's check. Silverberg's Construction Company, Rosenthal's Textile Company. Boom, boom, boom. Should I just keep going?
Keep going, man.
All right. So I'm doing this, going to New York. Fate. As I'm killing some time, I'm in like at basically Rockefeller Center, bullshitting around shopping.
Mm.
A Puerto Rican guy who I don't know from anybody cuts to me and says, "Hey, Poppy, you got some bamboos?" I don't know what bamboos are. Bamboos are like the tops or zigzags that they use in New York City, though.
Bamboo leaf.
Bamboo leaf.
Mm.
So I don't know what that is, but I do know the streets. Bamboo is wood. Wood is burn. Burn is weed. I could talk to you about some weed.
Yeah.
So I tell him I don't have any bamboos, but do you got some weed? And he's like, yeah, Bobby, I got nickel bags. I go to buy a nickel bag like right on the corner of 51st and 5th Avenue. As I'm handing him the 5, he hands me the bag of weed. I drop the bag of weed. I go to pick it up. I look in the window at this. It was a clothing store called the United Colors of Benetton's.
Benetton. I remember Benetton. Yeah.
Benetton was a big deal.
Yeah.
I see this gorgeous Dominican girl inside the Benetton's. I only notice it because I have to pick up my nickel bag of weed.
Yeah.
Finish my little transaction. She's just too pretty for me not to talk to.
Yeah.
I go into the Benetton to shoot my game. As I'm shooting my game, the owner of the store comes and is like, "Why are you distracting my employee?" She thinks quick on her feet and says, "No, he's actually here to apply for a job. I was just telling him what the procedures are." And she's like, "Oh, okay, good. Get all of the information. We need somebody right away." I think nothing of it. I go back to Detroit. My mom's like, "You were in New York over the weekend?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how you know, Mom?" She says, "Because some woman from New York called and says that you got the job and you should start on Monday." Now, my mother's very displeased with her son this summer because her son is spending about $2,000 a day whoring and sniffing cocaine, hanging out with his judge's daughter's girlfriend. My pop is like, I need you in New York more often. So for different reasons, both my parents think it's a good idea for me to move to New York. My mom, because she's like, he needs to get out of Detroit. Because his life, although he's living this playboy lifestyle, something's going on with him.
Yeah.
He needs a different environment. Pops is like, yeah, if you get a job there, that'd be a great front for what we're doing. I end up moving to New York.
Wow.
And, I had a good buddy, Jimmy Coleman, who was graduating from Columbia University. He was going into his senior year at Columbia. So I ended up spending a whole bunch of time at Columbia, so much time that they could damn near give me what they call it,
Honorary
degree. Yeah. Honorary degree. Mm-hmm. I would go on to meet a bunch of Ivy League kids, some of which would come on to be billionaires. Shout out to Ben Horowitz.
Oh, you knew Ben?
I know Ben Horowitz very well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In fact, I guess he won't mind. It's a harmless enough story. The first bag of weed I ever bought on my own, besides the one there on 5th Avenue, Ben Horowitz walked me down to 106 in Columbus. And in fact, when we first started this, it's been a minute since I spoke to him, but great regret. Ben was telling us about this place called Silicon Valley changing the world in '88.
Wow.
In fact, Ben implored me and all of us to go out to California with him when this Silicon Valley thing was starting. I know his dad, David Horowitz. Shout out to David Horowitz, great guy. Me and Dave were just trying to work on some things about 10, 12 years ago in the apparel horse equestrian business. I've been to his estate up in Atherton, California. He's a genius, though. Always was. Always was. He was one of those kind of people. I've met a lot of smart people, but Ben's smart on a different kind of way. Mm-hmm. He is. But he was there. He was one. There was a guy named Peter Nash, who later would get known in the rap industry. He was finishing up at Columbia as Prime Minister Pete Nice of a
Oh,
group
Pete Nice,
called
third base. You talking third base, man?
Base.
Yeah.
Being that cool running around there at Columbia. Kid named Tony Childs, his brother was another big guy in New York named Kevin Childs.
Kevin
He
Childs,
started
yeah.
a urban magazine called Don Diva.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, by all that set in motion from the DEA gets me enthralled in this New York lifestyle. And I ended up spending the next 10 years living in New York.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Did you get the girl, man?
And I didn't. We end up being co-workers. Barbara was her name, and she was a good girl, drop dead gorgeous, but she had a boyfriend, and she was actually very loyal and committed to him.
Okay.
We ended up having a great work relationship, but actually I got fired from that job, which is the crazy thing, which was cool because then I ended up getting another job at Rockefeller Center. And again, I was really working more as a front. You know, pops and them, and moms was like, you need to keep working because you can't just be your father's overpaid errand boy. That's not a good look. And I'm not signing off on that. So whatever you're doing with your dad, you need to keep a job.
Yeah.
And I look back on her, you know, my mom's a special woman. She was insightful because that kept me somewhat grounded, you know, and it was a much better look because if anybody was looking, how's this kid living this lifestyle and he doesn't even have a job? Right. But
then
the thing
was killing idle time as well, bro. And looking back, all the idle time that you had in Detroit, sniffing cocaine, messing with the women, just cruising the streets. Now you're working at least. That kills some of the idle time, you know?
And I'm learning the restaurant and retail business at a really high level. Which leads to me opening up my first business. I ended up one of the last jobs I had for one of my own, Avi and Moshe Toledo, two Israeli guys, ended up letting me run. I started off just working there. I ended up running their boutique on Columbus Avenue. When Columbus Avenue was like the new place. They'd end up going back to Israel, and then first they would focus more on women's clothes. So that ended. I ended up running a Gap in Times Square and down in the Village. It's like the biggest Gap in the country. It's like a $60,000 a day store. So, and I'm still doing my thing with Pops, and they're paying me really well. But a buddy of mine tells me that there's this new incubator retail space up in Harlem called the Mart 125, directly across the street from the Apollo. And I'm smoking a joint, having a drink, and my man tells me about this place, and I'm like, I'm 27, and I'm like, I don't want to work for anybody anymore, but I do need a cover. So I call my pops and like, Daddy, I want to quit the job. I want to quit the Gap, and I want to open up a clothing store. I've been working in retail for a long time now. I know what I'm doing. He's like, all right, next time I'm in New York, which you used to come to New York for business a lot. He's like, let me check it out. Pop came and checked out the space, bankrolled me to open up my first store July 15th, 1993. 27, got a clothing store across the street from the Apollo. And let's just say the people uptown didn't know, but they knew this was kind of unusual for a young Black guy to be moving like this. Except for the other young Black guys that were moving like this, but they were all famous in the streets. And that's how my entrepreneurial career began, though.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Courtney. Man, wow. First of all, thank you, man, for being so vulnerable with us, man. What are your values today, bro?
Well, first, let me preface that the fact that I'm telling you these stories and the longest period of time I've ever been incarcerated was 30 days in the county jail. God has shown such exceptional grace and mercy in my life. I truly understand what grace is, unmerited favor. So many people I know and have seen have profited so much less than I have from that lifestyle. Um, you know, I had my bouts, personal bouts with the streets would put me through, but so my first value is appreciation for the grace and mercy of God.
Yeah.
I have been afforded to live a life, to be honest, very few will ever know even exist. So my values is one of humility. I'm at a phase now at the end of my entrepreneurial career, looking at trying to do some things to really give back. I've tried to be a charitable person and share some of my resources with people for a minute, but to do it formally, you know, and really kind of full circle this family story of ours, and give back. I am what you would call a conservative. I'm a family, God, friend kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know, I pretty much believe in real traditional values. Black economic empowerment, you know, that's one of my real things right now. Helping my community out with some type of financial literacy.
Yeah.
My life, if it's taught me one thing for sure, it's that in America, in a capitalist society, if you don't understand capitalism, you're doomed.
Boom. Done.
You can't compete in a capitalist society and not understand how capitalism works.
You're cooked. It's been one.
Yeah. The greatest thing I think about this country is this. This country is so capitalistic and that no one cares where the money comes from. America judges you on whether you have resources or not. No, that's an illusion of the poor, that they care where the money comes from. I understand that my father and his friends and myself working with them, we were all pawns in a much bigger game. That we thought we were making tons of money, but that was only because we were comparing it to poor people.
Yeah.
I have seen what the political corruption and how high this thing goes. We tried to share that through our platform. That, man, you just see this. You see the bands, you see the chain, you see the watch. You think that ain't it. This thing is so big. It's so global. It's we are the mice. It's a cat and mouse game, and we're the mice.
Yeah. We trying to get a house, and we got people on the corporate level buying islands.
Financing wars. I saw what the cocaine business did to Miami. It's not an exaggeration. The cocaine industry built Miami. There is no South Beach without that happening. There is no downtown Miami. I know for a fact it was the Miami is what it looks like when the powers that be launder their drug proceeds. They build hotels, they build nightclubs, they build resorts, they build industries. The banks clean it up, and next thing you know, you have this thriving tropical paradise called Miami. Yeah. But it doesn't happen without the profits from, and that's, yeah. So, it's just I want to give back. Still want to make some more money. Don't get that part wrong.
Ain't no question about it. We're gonna connect on some things.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Courtney, because I think this is very important for the audience to know, man. Where'd you get your mindset from, and who were some of your early influences? I know your dad. I mean, and you can mention your dad even more if you like, but who were some of the other people?
His man, Eddie Jackson. A lot of the things I learned from Eddie, I wouldn't be able to comprehend until I got older. You know, his attitude about money, that sometimes you just got to slap them in the face with your affluency to get their attention, because they don't have the time to explain to everybody I'm a rich nigga. So let me get that over with right away. I got it, plenty of it. So now just call me Mr. and Sir. Now we can keep it moving. Yeah. You know, his attorney, Milton Henry, again, read and research him. He buried Malcolm X. I mean, he was Malcolm's chief confidant. A Tuskegee Airman, started the Republic of New Africa back in the day. He was petitioning to get the five states of the Confederacy to become a Black independent state.
Courtney, let me ask you this, man. You're a hard worker, bro. I mean,
Yes,
I thought I was busy, and I was doing some research on you, and I was like, man, this guy is pretty inspirational, man. You know, you know how some days, man, we're just not feeling it, man, but we have the drive to keep going anyway. And then I'm looking at the amount of work that you've put in, bro. You have Big Boss Films, right? You have your books. You're a documentarian, amongst other things, man. So yeah, what do you have coming out of the Big Boss Film Works camp?
Okay, so got 3 books first on the shelf. We got Motown Mafia, the original story. Then we did a book called Big Man on Campus, which was a fictional version of my college days, which we kind of just talked about. Yeah. Then we did a book called Getting Off Zero, Mind Right, Money Right. Yeah. In collaboration with a great friend of mine, Ray Tatum, of Getting Off Zero Atlanta.
Yeah, we had him on the platform.
That's right. Yeah. So next up is we got 2 scripts. We got a script based upon that whole 1970 era thing we talked about. And then we got another script that's kind of based upon like the Big Man on Campus.
Okay. You have any release dates?
2024.
2024 is going
But
down.
Before that, we will release either a docu-series or a documentary. It'll be part 2 of the doc. So it's just a matter of we're really going to make some executive decisions the next 2 weeks and see if we're going to do like an 8-part series for part 2, which will be explaining what happened when Pops and Eddie came home, or if we'll just maybe make it a 90-minute solid doc, and it'll be available just like the doc is now on Amazon Prime, on Tubi, on Pluto. So finishing up part 2 of the doc, and then getting one of those 2 scripts out. I don't know. It'd be ambitious for us to get the doc done and 2 movies in 2024. But I definitely can see us getting the doc released and getting 1 movie shot in 2024.
So what extent were you involved with the first doc on your dad? Because that kind of blew up, man. That was nice. And I was watching it. Listen, let me tell you, fun fact. I was watching that thing maybe 2.5 years ago or something. Had no idea it was you, right? Or that was your old man. I didn't connect the dots, right? To what extent were you involved with that project?
Well, I was the executive producer. I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't even know. Fate would have it. Well, first we hooked up with a team called Parliament Productions. Okay. Some good people. Shout out to Jen and Dave London, Sergey. But they kind of started us off. And then there was a documentarian that was local guy named Al Prophet, Alan Bradley.
Oh, we know Al Prophet. Yeah. We love Al Prophet, man. He's done some things in Chicago.
All right. Yeah. Al did some stuff in Chicago. Al had just did a project called Rollin', talking about the decline of the auto industry and the rise of the street industry in Detroit. He dealt with a lot of guys that were in this Young Boys Incorporated situation at the time.
YBI.
So YBI, he got familiar with, and he had been hearing about in fact, as he was doing the Rollin' project, a cop told him, if you're going to talk about drugs in this town, you need to be talking about Eddie Jackson and Courtney Brown, and you're not talking about nothing.
There it is.
And so that struck Al's curiosity. Yeah. He had kind of mentioned my Pops and Eddie in Rollin'. Anyway, we ended up linking up. He was all enthusiastic about doing the project. He was willing to go in on a partnership kind of thing, because I never made a doc or knew anything about it. And me, him, and Lou all collaborated up. I just was being a producer. So on the creative aspect, Al gets all credit. What I did was I was able to get my Pops and a lot of the people, I think, to make the project what it is these aren't secondhand stories. You're hearing from Black Butch. You're hearing from Pops. You're hearing from Rudolph. You're hearing from Jap. You're hearing from my cousin Lala, R.P. R.P. Huckabuck. These guys who actually lived it, did it, and they were able to tell the biggest unkept, the worst kept secret in Detroit.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Courtney, what other projects are you working on, man? As I understand it, you're in the flower industry.
I am in the cannabis business. We have a dispensary in what's called Bay City, Michigan, which is about 90 miles north of Detroit.
Okay.
It's called the Dime Shop, 1525 Broadway. Anybody in the Bay City, Saginaw area, stop by. We are one of only 5 of the 251 licensed dispensaries in the state of Michigan. We're only 5 that are owned and operated by people that look like us.
There it is, my man.
So we're gonna expand our footprint into that. So we're already in we're gonna go into what they call the consumption lounge business, which is like the bar aspect of the cannabis business. Cannabis event business where we can rent halls and put on cannabis exposés. So this cannabis business is kind of my last frontier. I've we've been running for a minute, brother.
Yeah, I know this. I know this.
We've been running for a minute. The reality is that ain't a bunch of fights left to be fought. So we're gonna take this thing to the cannabis business as far as it can go. I mean, I'm looking for retirement homes. So that put it in some kind of perspective.
Listen, I want to ask you, that leads me to my next question. Global business. I remember our good friend, our mutual partner, Ray Taylor, man, he tells me about this coffee, and I send him a few dollars and he sends me a case of coffee, half a case of coffee or something like that. Was that your venture as well?
It was. In fact, yes. So power of thought, right? Well, I went to Africa for the first time in like 2001, right? Fell in love with the continent. I went to Ghana, and me and my mom and niece actually spent a month over there. This was in 2001. I spent a week in Senegal, a week in Ghana, a week in Ivory Coast, a week in Nigeria. So that's in 2001. Don't think no more about it. I write that book, Getting Off Zero with Ray. We got a chapter in there called Go Where the Gold Is, Return to the Motherland.
There it is. Yes, sir.
That's in 2014, right?
Yeah.
In 2015, my mentor out the blue says he had played football at Michigan in the 60s, won a Rose Bowl and stuff. He runs into his man. His man tells him that his daughter had married this big time banker from Angola, Southwest Africa. And his daughter's living in Africa, doing well, living with this big shot banker. And this big shot banker is looking for some African-American businessmen to link up with and do business. So, it don't take nothing for me to hop on a plane and chase a dollar.
As evidenced.
Right. So I tell my mentor, well, put it together.
Yeah.
Let's not, look, I'm from that world. We ain't gonna talk about this shit all day. Right. Either it's something there or it ain't. And if it ain't, it ain't. And if it is, it is. But we ain't gonna do all this texting, emailing. Let me hop on a bird, go over there, chop it up with old boy, and see if it's something there. So shout out to his name is Miguel. He's like the president of the Federal Reserve of Angola, just to put it in some perspective. Right? He's like a big shot. So the thing was, he wanted some consulting about the hair business. I've been in the hair business, too. Shout out to Mr. Choi, my Korean plug, that had me running over to China with him, bringing back some hair. So, we didn't hit a few licks along the way.
There it is.
So he wanted me to help him out getting hair imported to Angola, right? But the way it was going to work, taking US dollars, then we got to turn the money into Chinese yuan, RMB, then get it sold in Angola money. Then the money was all going to end up, after we ran the numbers, the banks were going to get all the money. And Angola's currency go up and down. So $100,000 one day might be worth 100,000. The next day it might be worth 10,000. I was like, bet no good. Let's not do that.
Right.
But while I'm at his estate in Angola, he hands me a cup of coffee. He's like, are you a coffee drinker? I'm like, actually, I'm addicted to coffee. He asked me, try this coffee. And he's like, is it good coffee? I'm like, actually, it's a very good cup of coffee. He says, is this better? Is this as good as the coffee you drink in America? I say, it's actually better than 90% of the coffee I buy in America. Why do you ask? He says, because by the way, Courtney, I own a coffee plantation. And one of my side businesses is a company called Cafe Kazinga. And we sell in Angola and we sell a little bit in South Africa. He said, but I've been wanting to see what would happen if I got this coffee into America, if we could make a go of it. So I'm like, we leave it at that. I'm like, good idea, good coffee. I go back to Detroit, he stay in Angola. 6 months later, he calls me and he's just like, let's go in the coffee business, man. And I'm like, well, it's only two problems with that, Miguel. One, I don't know anything about the coffee business. And two, I don't know anybody in the coffee business. He says, but you're a businessman, right? I said, I'm a fairly competent businessman, yeah. He says, and you do know a lot of people. I say, I know a lot of people, and my people know a lot of people. He was like, so we can figure it out. Tell you what, it's 40,000 pounds of coffee headed your way. It'll be there in 30 days. I'll send you some money, start a bank account. Let's just figure it out. I'm like, man, you know what? If you're fool enough to try it, I'm fool enough to go along with you. Let's go into the coffee business.
You're damn right. Hey, listen, you just reminded me of something. Let's go into the coffee business. I don't know anything about the coffee business. I don't know anybody in the coffee business. All right? Your old man. I don't know anything about the drug game. We don't know anybody that has no plug in the drug game.
Right?
Yeah,
a lot of parallels, right?
A lot of parallels, brother. Yeah, man, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about global business for a second, man.
Let me preface this. If I'm an African-American young man and I am under the age of 35, I'd get out this country and go do business. All the opportunities, there's opportunities here. So first of all, I think every Black man, one of the things that hold us back is we limit ourselves. We don't understand networks, right? And we think that the little race problems we got here are the real race problems we got here, that applies every place else. I feel freer. I just got back from Vietnam like last month, right? The Vietnamese love Black people. The world know that we ain't their problem. They might got a problem with white America and white politicians in Washington, but the world ain't got no problem with the Black man. They know whatever American problems is, we didn't do it. And they know better than us what we've been through.
Yeah.
So people is welcoming. When I'm in China, they used to always ask, so Mr. Brown, why your people let the Jewish man and the Arab man come to China, buy the product, bring it back to America and sell it to them? Why don't they come here and buy it themselves? And why all these middlemen? Why your people need white man, Arab man, Jewish man to buy it from us to sell it to them? And they would look at me crazy because I'd say, my friend, it's a simple question, but a really long answer. I've been begging my crew to get a passport and come fuck with me overseas for 20 years.
Wow.
I've been able to get in and out of a bunch of businesses, and people be like, Courtney, you close a business and get a business, you keep it moving. I'm like, man, because when you go overseas, you understand, look, I ain't got to do this for 10 years. The lick you trying to hit is going to take you 5 years. I'm going to hop on a plane, grab some shit, hit the lick, and I'll be on my next venture, and you still going to be talking about signing a lease. I'll be on my third venture because I went straight to the source.
Yeah. Hey, so, man, listen.
Yeah.
When we kicking that kind of game in Chicago, we tell one another, pop that corn, man. Pop that corn, brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
That means you kicking game.
And if you're single,
yeah.
God don't just put pretty women here in America. I can put it that way. Please don't be confused on that.
Yeah.
You know, I remember me and mom changed in Nigeria $10,000 for their money, right? At the bank. I see this guy, 3 bankers with these literally wheelbarrows. When we exchanged our money, $10,000 like converted into 28 million lira. So we hear about the U.S. good to have U.S. dollars, but you don't get the value of having U.S. dollars here in America. You have to leave America to take advantage of the U.S. dollar. So when I take $1,000 to China, back when I was going, it was 7-1. That 1,000 turns into 7,000 Chinese RMB. When I go to Ghana with $1,000, that turns into 5,000, 6,000 Ghana centis, right? So now a bottle of Coca-Cola has cost me $0.25. After conversion, lobster dinners cost me $8. Again, if you're a bachelor, young ladies know the exchange rate very well also. They are very happy to meet you. The business people over there are happy to meet you.
Yeah.
Right? So my buying power and inventory goes so much further, right? I'd be brutally honest about the international travel. If your relationship with your overseas person is through Amazon, Alibaba, an email, or a Zoom meeting, you don't have a relationship.
Yeah.
In those cultures, until we have lunch together, till you know what my kid's name is, I know what your kid's name is, then we have a relationship.
I agree.
You can't form those relationships online, really. At a certain point, y'all need to become. And that's the difference, because you can do business online, but you're going to pay the online price.
Yeah, that's right.
My ticket is that we have lunch price.
Yeah.
Your ticket is the I got an email price. I assure you there's a big difference between my lunch buddy price and my email price.
Which takes me to my next question. One thing I like about you, man, is that, first of all, you're an intellectual. You're a historian, right? And so I think you will answer this next question fairly well. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of business people?
That's a great question. Mount Rushmore of business people. All right, I'm from Detroit. So we're going to put Crazy Henry up there. Because I can do any. Do I have to do, you want across the board, any color, creed?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's your Mount Rushmore. It's yours.
All right, so I'm in Detroit. Crazy Henry.
That's what Crazy Henry?
That's what they called Henry Ford. Because they said he was crazy because he was telling them that this thing was going to replace the horse. And that this little thing he was tinkering with, what a horse could run circles around this thing he called the automobile, and that he was crazy. And now you drive through this city.
Yeah.
You drive through this city, and it's a monument to the Ford family. And he changed the world. He also put into play the idea, which nobody, why don't I pay my people enough to buy my product? You know, what's the UAW? Where they just beefing with this union.
Yes.
The people in the union are saying, we can't even afford to buy the cars we make anymore.
Right.
Which was the whole thing that Ford put that concept out there. You need to pay the people enough. And although he had some issues with the Jewish community, he was paying a black man equal wages of a white man before nobody was thinking of that. There are stories of old black men that worked for Ford that he was going to their funerals when they passed. So I know other communities got a problem with Henry Ford, but Henry Ford was good. Of a city called Inkster.
Inkster, yeah, I know Inkster, yeah.
He bought Inkster for his black employees. He bought Dearborn for his white employees. Told every bank, if you're white and you want a house in Dearborn, you will give them a mortgage. And told every bank that if one of my black employees from Inkster want a house, you will give them a mortgage. And then he said, you know what, we'll just finance it ourselves with Ford Financial.
Fun fact about Dearborn. Dearborn is synonymous to an area in Chicago called Bridgeport, is where the Dailies were from, right? And
okay.
And when I was coming over to Detroit during my early teen years, you know, to hang out with my uncle who worked for Chrysler, they would always tell us the same thing that my mother would tell us in Chicago. Don't get caught in Dearborn after dark. Don't get caught in Bridgeport after dark.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Dearborn was like that for years.
Yeah.
And on that, Dearborn basically used to be Henry Ford's backyard. Dearborn and Inkster was his backyard. They called it It called his estate Fairlane. Which they ended up naming Fairlane. That mall is named after Henry Ford's estate. That's what his estate was called. The University of Michigan, Dearborn. Henry Ford gave that to the University of Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of what he did.
So yeah, Henry
Ford. Damon Johns, founder of FUBU. Yeah. John Johnson, founder of Ebony Jet. Great story. John Johnson caught a train from Chicago to Detroit every weekend for 10 years to convince Ford Motor Company to advertise in Jet and Ebony. They told Henry, look, we don't need y'all, your circulation ain't big enough. Black folks really can't buy as many Lincolns that we need them to buy to justify us spending money. After 10 years of them people telling him, no, stop bothering us. Finally, he wore them down, and the marketing people at Ford said, look, man, we'll run an ad in your magazine. Just, okay, stop it.
Leave us alone.
Leave us alone. We're going to run one full-page Lincoln ad in this damn Ebony magazine of yours. They sold 3 times as many Lincolns that issue that they ever had, most of which they were able to track came out the African-American community. Ford advertised with Jet and Ebony every issue for the next 40 years.
Wow.
And of course, after Ford started, all the other auto industries started advertising. And that's what sent Jet and Ebony to be wild. Everybody our age, at every barbershop in America, you had a row of Jet magazines. And at everybody, mom and grandmama house, it was an Ebony magazine there. But the lesson why John Johnson is, think of John Johnson's death, his net worth was about $400 million. 99% of that money came from the African-American community. So the lesson be lost. We ain't Poe. We need to stop telling ourselves that lie, because you can't be Poe and drinking Hennessy and Remy and buying Jordans and then tell yourself you're from a poor community. Everything, our community can make us as rich as we want to be. John Johnson is proof of that.
Yeah.
He didn't get rich with white folks buying his magazines. He got rich because every Black person in America bought his magazine. So we got Henry Ford, we got Damon John, founder of FUBU. We got John Johnson. And then I'm gonna split the hair and just say Team Rockefeller Records, because I think Damon Dash, who I've had the pleasure of meeting and doing a little business with one time, is a genius, that he's just such a genius that we can't appreciate him. And Sean Carter, aka Jay-Z, despite of his spitting skills, which is another universe, they took two different paths, but they're both geniuses. They're both business geniuses. They took completely different paths. Both paths we need to learn from.
Yes.
Jay learned how to work the corporate world and make it do what it do. Dame does not have the personality for that and did not compromise it. He lives a very nice life and he's still doing some exceptional things in the business world. So that'd be my Mount Rushmore.
Man, I think that's a hell of a Mount Rushmore. Listen, what are you presently reading, man? I know you publish books, but do you have some journals or books or favorite novels that you've read or that you're reading now?
I'm rereading, which I reread on a yearly basis. George Clauson's The Richest Man in Babylon. I just reread. I read it probably 6 times. Anybody who hasn't read it, they need to read it if you're interested in financial security. It's a simple read, you know, Richest Man in Babylon by George Clauson. And I've got on my books to read again is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun, which is the Reginald Lewis story, the guy who started Beatrice Foods.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. Okay.
Why should white guys have all the fun? Book that changed my life, though, is The Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey.
Yeah.
Literally changed my life. Took me from the house Negro and put me back in I was a field Negro that was confused that I was a house Negro. And then I read Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, and it assured me that I was a house Negro and that we house Negroes need to get our affairs in order.
Ain't no question about it, man. Ain't no question about it. Yeah, one of my favorites is Carter G. Woodson. He's in that same vein. You know?
Well, you know, we borrowed heavy from him, the miseducation of a Negro, in getting off zero.
Yeah.
And war, you know, it scares me how miseducated I was. And to wrap up on this, you know, the greatest favor my dad did, besides all the resources he gave me, I think he got really upset because he found out when I was like 10 years old, 11, that I had never caught a city bus. And he just flips out like, he gonna be out here growing up with these white folks and he ain't gonna know nothing about. And so every weekend after that, for the next 4 years, he would drop me off with my mother's side of the family who still stayed in the projects. Wow, was that a blessing. I spent every weekend, like from 11 to 14, with my family in the projects. That served me well.
Yeah.
Because I could have really grown up a fool.
So listen, man.
I could have really grown up a fool.
You know, I've been frequenting Detroit ever since I was a young kid, man. Like I said, my uncle was over there and everything. He was my only uncle. So I was very fond of him, man. But I've always been into Detroit music, the Detroit scene. And right now I have 4 favorite artists out of Detroit.
Okay.
Hip-hop artists, I should say, because Dwelle is one of my favorite too. But hip-hop artists.
Familiar with them?
We're talking Guilty Simpson. We're talking Elzhi. We're talking Royce the 5'9" for a number of reasons. And we're talking Boldy James.
Another bad man.
Boldy James, classic Detroit. Classic
bad
Detroit.
Man.
Yeah.
Bad man. So
that leads me to my next question. Type of music does Courtney listen to?
I got a variety. I listen to some hip hop, but I'm stuck in the 90s and the 80s.
Okay.
You know, I was in New York. I was living in New York, and I remember 87, 88. You know, I remember Duke is chilling, Roy is billing. What more can I say?
Audio too. Yeah.
I remember coming home with this little lyric line in my head. Birthdays was the worst days. Now we sip champagne when we thirsty. And people were like, what did you say? I was like, man, it's this cat out of Brooklyn telling he fat and black. This boy can go.
Yeah.
So I was listening to what's happening with hip hop. So I still listen to a lot of old hip hop. I'm a huge Jay-Z fan. I got to know a young homie. Shout out to nephew 42 Doug out of Detroit. He was living down the hall from me. Down in we were in this high rise downtown, and we were briefly neighbors. So messing with him, I got online and I started checking out some of his music because I was like, I told him when we met, I was like, dude, I'm stuck in Nas and Jay-Z. And they was like, you need to check out. The young man's gifted kid, and the guy he's doing business with, Yo Gotti, they got a couple tracks, so they kind of bring me back. That kind of at least got me a little bit. So there's a couple of young artists here out of the D that I began to just come to find out because either their uncles or granddads or daddies, you know. So I'm getting a little bit, but I listen to a lot of jazz, a lot Ronnie Jordan, Ronnie Laws.
Yeah.
Still listen to old Michael Franks.
Yeah.
But
He wants to know.
Yeah, but I'd say early 90s rap. I'm still playing Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders. I'm still replaying Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z. Yeah.
I think you're having an enjoyable time when you come through the spot, man. I'm an avid vinyl collector.
Okay.
So when you come through the spot, I think you'll be quite.
Oh yeah. You and Lou, my man Lou. He's a guy.
Yeah. So listen, Courtney, I really appreciate the time you took out, man. I know you're a very busy guy, man, and I'm telling you, man, I can never thank you enough, brother.
Well, that's what we do.
Our final section of our podcast, we always like to end with our crowd favorite that's called Bring Some Weed. I got a story to tell, but I don't even smoke. And in this section, I like to afford our guests the opportunity to tell a story of their choice. So now is your time as we close to tell a story of your choice.
All right. It's the eve of New Year's Eve, 1989, going into 1990. There's a club called Nell's on 14th Street in New York City. It is the place to be. It is where all the movers and shakers go. So it's December 30th, the eve of New Year's Eve. So Nell's, anytime in 1989, is the place where you're going to run into anybody. I met all kind of people, Wesley Snipes, everybody there, right? This particular night, my crew from Detroit didn't come in. I'm under the influence. Me and Pops had a really good month, and I am in my zone. So, you know, I got my Liberace look on. I got my silk on. All my homeboys from Detroit are in town. My man run the club. So we get VIP. Everybody else waiting to get in line. I'm in my element. You know, got about 15 large in my pocket. I'm doing me. I'm puffy before puffy. So we in the club doing our thing. I notice sitting at the table, it's Mike Tyson, Naomi Campbell, and another couple. Now, my defense on this story is I am under the influence. I am feeling really nice of the mind. I go up to, so I'm here, like the couch with Tyson and Naomi are in front of me. I tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, yo, champ, I'm Courtney Brown Jr., man. And I was just thinking, that's it. I don't even give him a chance to respond. I tap him on the shoulder. He's like, I'm like, yo, champ, I'm Courtney Brown Jr., man. And I'm thinking, man, you get rid of that damn Don King and let your man represent you. We really gonna do something. That man turned around and looked at me. Hey, man, I don't like people fucking with me when I'm out in public. my buzz immediately goes away because it seemed like he was a half a thought away from just knocking my ass out. So now that he didn't check me, my buzz goes away. I get some sense. I'm like, yo, champ, I didn't mean no disrespect. I'm just a huge fan. I got a little carried away. Again, I apologize. All right, man, that's cool. Man, you gotta know, man, people be fucking with me when I'm out of public. He's like, that's you and your people over there? I'm like, yeah. You're like, I go to the bar, man. Tell them all to give you a bottle of champagne on me, man. All right? You have a good night, man. But, he's fucking with me like that. So the thing is, shout out to Mike Tyson. He bought me and all my people drinks and shit, couple rounds. He going to the bathroom doing his thing, shall I say. I'm going to the bathroom doing my thing. Now, the thing is, it's December. He's going to be fighting Buster Douglas in 60 days. And I know this. Had my mind been thinking right, he's doing the same shit I'm doing 60 days before a fight. I should have bet the farm on Buster Douglas. I knew what only a few people knew, which is that he's not taking this fight serious.
Yeah.
And that he was not going to come to fight. And I remember the night the Vegas stopped taking bets on that fight at 50-1. When Tyson got to be a 50-1 favorite, Vegas stopped taking bets. If I'd have put 10,000 at 50-1, 2.5 million.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But shout out to Mike Tyson. But
shout out to Mike, man.
I knew. Shout out to the champ. Hell of a guy.
Yeah, hell of a dude, man. Hell of a dude.
Yeah. I should have bet against him. I knew. But again, yeah, that's my Mike Tyson story.
Hey, man, that's a great, great story, man. Hey, Courtney, go ahead and share with the world, man, your social media, man, before we get out of here. It's been a pleasure, man. Let the world know your social media handles.
BigBossFilmworks.com, MotownMafia.com.
MotownMafia.com, BigBossFilmworks.com. Check us out on TikTok.
Big Boss
Filmworks across the gamut. Big Boss Filmworks. You got Instagram.
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Big Boss Filmworks. X, better known as Twitter, Big Boss Filmworks.
Big Boss Film on X.
It's just Big Boss Film on X.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still a dinosaur, you know.
Hey.
I'm the only man with a social media company to never be on social media.
Hey, man, listen, that's why you got good people around you, brother.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah.
Hey, Courtney, man, listen, we love you, man. We wish you
love
the
you
best.
back, bro.
You know, we're going to collaborate on some things, man. I'm looking forward to great, great things in 2024, man.
Definitely. Gonna be in the shot soon. Looking forward to getting you on our platform too, beloved.
No doubt. No question about it. So this concludes another episode of Chicago's Intellectuals Podcast. For Courtney Brown Jr., I am the Kid Rod Allen. Until next time, peace, peace, peace.
I'll let you, man.
My man.